take two. We're off to a really good start. When things start off weird on the Week in Strange, you know it's going to be. Yeah, disclosure is not what you think it is. Anyways, how are you, Thomas? Happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, and yeah, thank you very much, and happy Valentine's Day, you too. It's great to see our gorgeous American queen back, our Monday night maiden.
Hashtag that.
No disrespect, but Jason, I watched the fill-in job you did last Monday, and you played an absolute blinder. That was a fantastic show. The three of you, get Chance and Vanessa did. It was absolutely brilliant. It actually, yeah, it was so good. I was watching it on a ship that was bouncing, and afterwards, a Croatian truck driver tried to start a fight with me in the bar. But I was so relaxed by that show that nothing could rattle me. So well done.
Same. Thank you, Thomas. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with Vanessa and Chance, and it would have been awesome to have you guys there. It almost felt like an entirely different show. Something maybe we could start off another type of offshoot thing, but that was fun. So Vanessa and Chance, if you're watching, that was a lot of fun. Definitely need to do that again. But let me give this back over to Timony.
No, I agree. That was amazing. And it's great to have people that you can depend on, you know, when you need things and they pull through and do a really good job. So anyways, okay, here we go. The Dove Bush Rocks Complex. The Dove Bush Rocks is a group of natural and man-made structures carved out of rock in the Skovlitsky Beskidi National Park in the Skol Rayon of Ukraine. The geology of the rock formations is composed of massive gray sandstones corresponding to the Yamna series from the Upper Paleocene, a geological epoch that lasted from around 66 to 56 million years ago. The rocks are named for Oleska Dovebush, a famous 18th century outlaw and legendary folk hero who robbed from the rich to help serfs and the poor peasantry. It is believed that the insurgency movement may have used the rocks as a shelter to launch raids against wealthy estates, tax farmers, and merchants within the Carpathian Mountains, although any association to Dovebush is likely a modern invention. The Dovebush rocks stretch for up to 1 kilometer in length, consisting of natural formations that appear to form the shape of medieval towers, many of which are uniquely named. One particular concentration of rocks is referred to as the castle, which contains numerous rock-cut niches and caves, believed to be the remains of a small old monastery for members of the monastic community in Eastern Christianity. The caves would have served as the living quarters with a centralized chapel, protected from the elements and banditry in relative seclusions deep in the forests of the southern slope of Mount Sokolov. Evidence of some man-made fortifications, such as a defensive moat and pits on which a fence once stood, and a system for water storage suggests that the castle was literally used at some point as a stone fortress. Due to a lack of archaeological research, it is speculated that the fortifications may either date from either the Mongolian Tartar invasion in the 13th century or the Offscrew period in the 17th to 18th century. Yep, that's it. Doesn't that look really cool? I would love to go see that in person.
I also don't believe the date. To me, it looks like it's a megalith from ancient times. And but those dates that they've given are absolutely ridiculous. They would have had like wooden fortifications and all kinds of like brick and the mortar by the time that thing was invented. Why should you go to all the trouble to channel out something that looks like a finished temple? It looks like a temple. There's too much work put into it. It's finished. And it looks like things I've seen from the Neolithic in Malta and in Sardinia. And you see, they're funny. Let's say it was in Ukraine. Yeah, you see, the communists destroyed a lot of ancient history over there. You know, there was no real schools or universities studying that kind of ancient history. It wasn't considered important. And so they're way behind everyone else than, say, in Western Europe or anywhere else. And I reckon that thing is probably an ancient megalith, and they're just using local folklore and local tales that are always, you know, unreliable, really, or generally unreliable, to tell you what they are. But I don't think that's a fort from the 17th century. I'd say that's an ancient megalith. It was just too much work to do that in the 17th century. They had cement, bricks, and mortar and everything then. Why would they bother with carving on a solid rock?
You know what it reminds me of, Thomas, is your photograph of what's it called, the Echtensteiner.
Yeah.
That's like when I saw this, I'm like, oh, this one's gonna look. Yeah, Thomas is gonna see the correlation between the two photographs, but it's got that same.
Those and that has those hermitages too. You know, they're like, they call them hermitages. And they claim that they were used by Christian monks. Well, if they're not, they're much older. They're much older than that. And yeah, that's exactly what it reminds me of. I heard that too. That's it. That's exactly what that reminds me of.
Yeah. But again, it looks like it's got that kind of weathered thing. If this is ancient, this is not something like you're saying that came from the 17th century. And it's like there are so many structures like this that have either been, I don't think it's water erosion, but it's something like either a tremendous amount of heat, or something that over time, or I don't know if it's like something with the gravity shift. No, that would do something else. Never mind. I was gonna say we're talking about gravity shift.
Somehow they could soften the stone.
Yeah,
that seems to be the whole thing. Like, there was some technology in the past where they could soften stone and turn it into like plasticine type thing and cut it in like that way. It has, there was something, whether they, I've heard these stories that there was people alchemists who can actually make stones turn to like a plasticine by soaking them in a vinegar, like a vinegar mixture with urine or something like that. And I wondered if they discover something like that, it could penetrate the molecular structure of the stone, and then they could carve it like butter.
Yeah. I'm looking at a few of the comments here, and people are talking about this a little bit. No, this isn't flat Earth. But this idea that like the softening of stones and everything, I long time ago when I was really interested in Atlantean stuff, probably around 2013, 2014, I had a dream about, I was with a group of people playing these didgeridoo type trumpets that were, I want to say they were made out of like a wooden, they weren't brass, but they're wooden or bone, I want to say. And we were all arranged in like a formation, whereas like the bass ones were in the center, and then there are higher frequency ones that fanned out towards the sides. And we're all playing like this, basic brass music where there's no valve. So you just have the harmonic series. So there's the fundamental, the octave above the fundamental, the fifth, the octave again, the third, the fifth, the seventh, and the octave again. So you can make melodies with those like you can on a natural horn or on a Alpenhorn, for all you Deutschers out there. But so anyway, we were doing something like that, and we were moving stones. We're making a structure somehow. And I don't know if this was just a dream that was like tickling my fancy of like being, a musician, being interested in Atlantean stuff. But it was just like we were in some kind of really beautiful, ornate, almost Tolkien or the modern rendition of the Lord of the Rings, the 2003 version, like the way that the elves, their kind of the structures were in that film. It was kind of like something like that. And we were playing and levitating stones and moving things around. That's it.
I was just going to say, I had a friend in high school whose dad was really into all this stuff. I won't say exactly what he did. But I remember in high school, they bought this really beautiful, it was like a 3-piece granite fountain to put outside in their front yard. And I wasn't there. I didn't see it, but my friend told me about it. And then I know the family really well too. So his dad told me about it too. And the pieces of granite were way too heavy for one person to lift. Even maybe 3 men could lift it, but it was really, really heavy. And he took 2 speakers and he played some tone and he touched it to the granite and he was able to pick it up by himself.
Wow. I'll tell you, see, I had a similar experience. I had a 15-inch space speaker with a bass guitar, and I had a tone generator. And me and this guy used to work with David Victor, used to repair electronics together. So we were kind of always messing around with other things as well, goofing off and stuff. We put a slab of concrete, like a paving slab, like you'd have on a street, and about like that thick, about that wide. And it was wider than the speaker. And we put it on the speaker and sent a tone generator. We had a tone generator for testing, everything. And when we got down to like 30 hertz, which is way below an E string on a bass guitar, the thing went like that and it fell off. So there you go. Sound can levitate heavy stones. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've done it.
Yeah. And I wonder too, if we're thinking about, ancient civilizations building, things like the pyramids, was it 1,000 people standing around singing a tone together and putting that stuff together?
Yeah, that's what Colin Wilson said in one of his books. He said, imagine like a shaman or a druid in front of like 1,000 people and maybe they had supplemented by horns that could blow very low notes, and everyone would go.
Yep. Subharmonics,
in their diaphragm,
yeah.
and eventually, either by means of putting something underneath that could act like a medium, I don't know, like sheets of, like even pieces of poles of wood, to get so the sound could penetrate in. Then it would just be just like a maglev; it would levitate, and all you have to do then is, if you turn, especially if you turn to an emotional ritual, it becomes magic, you know.
Yeah. What you're talking about there. And then there's the concept of subharmonics, where you can create a harmonic below rather than a harmonic above. I think they do that sometimes when they're making pipe organ pipes. So when you're going down to the 64-foot range, which that's down there below the 30 hertz, down into the like below human hearing register, but they'll take a pipe that isn't necessarily 64 feet long. They'll take one of them that's in the 32-foot range, and they'll do something to it to bend the air a certain way so that they can create a false subharmonic. But I would imagine like this in the dream that I had about playing these like bone or wooden trumpets, like, yeah, you know, if you're hitting all those harmonics and you're playing in some sort of resonant chamber, like you can do the same thing with acoustics in a hall, or acoustics of a like a gorge, like an amphitheater type of thing, and be able to, I imagine, yeah. So it just, that again, it's lost technology that we haven't integrated into our current civilization yet. But, you know, perhaps back then in the Atlantean or previous, whatever we want to call it, the previous iteration of mankind on Earth, we might have discovered this because we were closer, that civilization, we were closer to natural law, and perhaps didn't have the incursion of like this other that maybe came in somewhere, like the demiurge type of concept, where there's this alien other awareness that came in that brought its type of reality into this one and got us away from our own natural law and was trying to go closer to its natural law.
Yeah, well, ever since the classical world, we've concentrated heavily on thermodynamics and hydrodynamics, using water and heat to make things happen. But we haven't really explored acoustic or harmonic dynamics.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and that could be a whole type of energy systems engineering that we've never even looked at.
Yeah. And I would imagine too, like on somebody's talking about some planetary stuff in the comments and mentioned Neptune. This idea that perhaps one of the things where astrological influences from celestial bodies and planets, the way that they could have influence on the planet could be through ELF, through extreme low frequencies, that they could be influencing us whenever you were born, you know, whatever stars and planets you were born under. There's a particular frequency that's being broadcast then. So as those planets transit and as they go through different constellations, there could be different complex layers of extremely low frequencies or incredibly high frequencies that could affect us, like not necessarily on a Renfielding sense, but can get in there and affect the psyche the same way that like they were doing this with magnetism, with MK Ultra and Project Monarch, I think is what it was. And some of these things where they're the ship, what was the ship one? Eldridge with Philadelphia Experiment. Thank you. When they were doing that, taking the sailors out there onto a ship and blasting them with, they're trying to make the sailors invisible, and they ended up fusing to the ship. Yeah, they like. So this whole, I would imagine like this is something less explored, but perhaps it's something that's suppressed for a deliberate reason for them.
Just remind me of something. There's a fantastic song from the 80s by Kate Bush called Experiment 4. And it's about, it also has an amazing music video. And it's about this concept of a weapon that was used, a sound was used to kill someone, you know, and that's the chorus. But what happens is that it opens up a portal to another reality. Now, she is a very interesting person. She is very well read into Wilhelm Reich. In fact, back in the 80s, I remember she wrote a song, Cloud Busting, after reading his books that are impossible to get. And I often wonder if she maybe go and watch the video for Experiment 4. Someone posted in the links below, and go watch that and tell me, could that have been possibly something that she was told, that someone who worked in the military were messing with sounds as a weapon and they opened a portal into another reality? Wow.
I like that. Being a musician and composer and a sound guy, that this shit excites me a little bit.
Yeah.
But and also it reminds me too, we were talking yesterday on the virtual pub about the Manhattan Project and opening up realities that way, like with extreme pressure waves like that. You know, I don't think people necessarily know what the consequences are of creating some of these gigantic explosions, and just like Parsons and Hubbard were ripping open the time-space continuum with kind of their like chaos Enochian type of stuff. Like there's all kinds of things I think that people end up inadvertently tearing open the fabric of reality, and then immediately when that fabric of reality is torn open, the stitchers of reality come back in and just try to sew that back up very, they put sutures in there real quick. And I think we saw that there with Parsons and Hubbard and Crowley all kind of getting offed within a few years of each other, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So, but back to the original story, I agree. That thing is ancient. No way is that. And they probably used, like Timothy said, that's an amazing story, by the way, about your friend's father. Really fantastic, actually. And I think that's how they did it.
Yeah. I'm absolutely convinced of that for sure. All right. That was a really good one. Okay. Here we go. The 1855 Devil's Footprints mystery in Devon, England. Something strange happened on the cold night of February 8th, 1855, around the Exe estuary in Devon, England. That winter was extremely cold. According to reports from the time, temperatures remained around freezing from January until March. The low temperatures didn't allow snow to melt, and every new snowfall just added a new layer over the terrain. These extreme weather conditions were the perfect setup for the strange events of that night. According to the few witness accounts from the time, after a heavy snowfall on the night of February 8th, 1855, mysterious hoof marks appeared all over South and East Devon. The hoof marks were reported to be around 4 inches long, 3 inches across, between 8 and 16 inches apart, and mostly in a single file. Reports about these footprints came from around 30 different locations in Devon. The combined footprints had a reported length of between 40 to 100 miles. It seemed like the creature that left the traces could overcome any obstacle. Footprints were found over houses, frozen rivers, haystacks, snow-covered roofs, high walls, and also inside drain pipes. Here's a part of one news report that describes the event. It appears on Thursday night last, there was a very heavy snowfall in the neighborhood of Exeter and south of Devon. On the following morning, the inhabitants of the town, or of the above towns, were surprised at discovering the footmarks of some strange and mysterious animal endowed with the power of ubiquity, as the footprints were to be seen in all kinds of unaccountable places. On the tops of houses and narrow walls, in gardens and courtyards, enclosed by high walls and palings, as well as in open fields. The footprints appeared over a huge area, from Exmouth top up to Topsham and across Exe estuary to Dawlish and Teaganmouth. Some reports also claimed prints appeared even further south to Totnes or Torquay and as far away as Weymouth, Dorset, and Lincolnshire. First-hand evidence of this event is rare. The first written account of this phenomenon appeared in 1950 after a collection of documents belonging to Reverend H.T. Ellicombe, the vicar of Clyst St. George, in the 1850s was discovered. These documents included his personal letters, some tracings of the footprints, and a letter to the Illustrated London News marked not for publication. Here's part of that letter. The marks which appeared on the snow, which lay very thinly on the ground at the time, and which were seen on Friday morning to all appearances, were the perfect impression of a donkey's hoof. The length 4 inches by 2 3/4, but instead of progressing as the animal would have done, or indeed as any other animal would have done, feet right and left, it appeared the foot had followed foot in a single line, the distance from each tread being 8 inches or rather more, the footmarks in every parish being exactly the same size, and the steps the same length. The footprints were soon named Devil's Footprints or Tracks of Satan because their shape and resemblance to a cloven hoof. Some people started to really believe the devil himself made these footprints. People were scared for some time after the event and avoided venturing outside after midnight.
With hooves of steel, I race on the rocks through solstice stubborn to equinox, and I rave and I rape and I rip and I rend, everlasting world without end. Mannequin, maiden, Maenad, man, and the might of Pan. Eopan, Eopan, Pan, 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 Eopan. Had to. That one gave me chills. The Pan current is so strong right now, and I didn't even make this connection with this when we found this story, but just our friend Pan, who's so he's making moves right now, and this is, I know, I'm sure Thomas, you saw that connection there too with this. and that artwork that looks so Goetia like too, with those legs.
It is from the Goetia. It's the demon.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think of Pan at all. I just didn't know what to make of that. Well, I think you probably would think of Pan if you thought if the footsteps were regular, but like in it, as if it described them as if they were on like a spiral or a wheel, and it was the wheel, like a wheel of footprints going around across the county. That's just freaky as anything.
Yeah.
I know those places. That distance is incredible. You're talking about like 50 miles or something. That's really bizarre. I never heard this story before. What was the year again?
1855.
Wow, that's Lovecraft country. That's where Lovecraft's family came from, Devon. So I wonder if that was like that was in the ancestral memories or something. I don't know what to even begin to say about that, but it is truly bizarre. I don't blame people back then for being freaked out.
Yeah, somebody, Alan, put in the comments, a djinn on a motorcycle with hoof-shaped tires. Yeah,
yeah,
it does. Yeah,
or bicycle. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, that's covering 50 miles.
Yeah, that's why the hymn to Pan, that line about with hooves of steel, I race on the rocks through solstice, stubborn to equinox. I'm like, oh yeah, he's running all over the place, sowing his wild oats. But I think this is pretty cool. And yeah, that Goetia demon, but the whole thing with, again, with wheel entities, these interwoven rings that there's all this symbolism out there that people have seen.
Which is interesting that you just said that, because the Olympics are also going on.
That's right. The Olympic ring.
The Olympics, the Olympic rings.
Yeah. It's interesting how it showed up in the snow. It's like it's almost like it was waiting for the snow. Mm-hmm. Almost like the show itself, Yep.
Ready from solstice to equinox. Yeah. Again, I just the Pan thing for me, like, oh man, because I've been in such a Pan current here in the last week or so. But no, I think this one's so cool. But yeah, I didn't think Timothy was just talking there about the Olympics right now too, and those 4 interwoven rainbow colored rings, very similar to like the fire angel that you used for the graphic for Liber Velocity. With like the Ophanim, but flattened out into 2-dimensional space, like an Ophanim roadkill kind of thing.
I've got a Pan story. I met this guy called Dave during the week, his friend of Neil, and he was up in this really remote community in Scotland where it's like a real life summer isle, where they took an island where somebody had said they saw nothing, nothing would grow, and it's apparently they've turned this place using kind of a spiritual tradition into an incredible factory of food. They can grow apples up in there and everything, all kinds of food. And apparently it's supposed to be impossible, but they did it. But anyway, a story about that is that the singer, the Water Boys, Mike Scott, claimed to have seen Pan up there on that island. Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, that it's like I think there's somebody, I forgot who it was, but that's making this might be going off topic here a little bit, but somebody making the connection between the Canadian truckers honking and all that stuff with Pan, and looking at Pan with the Pan pipes, going along, and that connection.
Honk.
Yeah.
Honk, and also panic, pandemic, panic. Pan that's where all those things come from. They mean in totality, and it's also coming into spring as well. And
psychopath season.
the wild hunt is over. And maybe that's very synchronistic that you picked that story more than anything else.
Yeah, it's kind of like the night of Pan.
I couldn't even begin to even decipher that one. That was just a mind fuck. Yeah,
and it's just like the night of Pan again right now. It's like everything that's going on geopolitically, our world, not our world here as a parallel reality, but the consensus reality that we're all part of is going through kind of a night of Pan right now. And as Timothy said, the paradigm pimps are not happy about it.
Like I don't want to dwell too much on it, but and if that happened today, those footprints, I wouldn't be surprised. I've just been watching a video on Rich Planet about Richard Hall's channel about them. They got a microscope out and they looked at what was in the vaccine, and the fucking thing is it's like your worst nightmare. It's nanotechnology and entities and everything in it, and it's like Yeah, okay. We are living in very interesting times, but my Christ, are they challenging times?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and there was something else in there where it was talking about whatever this thing was, people were speculating that something had been unleashed and it's out there walking around freely. And I know we've talked about that a couple of times on here about, alien invasion or whatever, or entity invasion. That's why I said at the beginning, disclosure is not what you think, that shit's running fucking wild all over the place right now. Yeah, and Pan is too.
And then you have you have Yuri Geller saying things like that. He has information that and
we're gonna get to that one. we gave away our one of our stories right there.
Okay, I'm glad though. Anyway, forget it. Anyway, yeah, I mean, it's the weak and strange. We're living in the era of the epoch, the Aeon of Strange right now.
Yeah, Aeon of Strange. I like that. Can make that into a yeah. I
like that we release the best of these on DVD. That's what we'll call it.
Yeah. Aeon of Strange. I love it. All right. Any more thoughts about Wheelie Pan?
Wheelie Pan. I think that man, whoever that was in the comments, said it was a motorcycle with a hoof on it. I'm down with that.
Yep. We're going up on it, like parkour. Yeah. He parkoured. Yeah. He parkoured hardcore. Hardcore parkour. Okay. A plan to chase down the first known interstellar visitor. In 2017, astronomers uttered a jubilant hurrah as they confirmed the first known interstellar visitor, the first known visitor from another star system to our solar system. They named the object Oumuamua, which means first distant messenger in Hawaiian. Such objects had been predicted beforehand, but we'd never managed to glimpse one. And scientists caught only a fleeting glimpse of Oumuamua, which was already speeding out of our solar system when they spotted it. So they don't know for sure what Oumuamua was: a shard of an exoplanet, a comet spawned by another star, an alien spacecraft. Oumuamua is now outside the range of earthly telescopes, never to be seen again. Or is it? A team of scientists said this month, January 2022, they want to build a spacecraft to chase Oumuamua down. They claim they could reach it as early as 2047. Scientists are developing Project Lyra with the goal of sending a spacecraft to reach interstellar visitors and not just Oumuamua. It's worth noting that, so far, astronomers have only discovered one other interstellar visitor, which they call 21 Comet Borisov in 2019. The 21 stands for, 2I. The 2I stands for second interstellar. Borisov was very clearly a comet, and Oumuamua might be a comet too. But the situation isn't as clear with Oumuamua. Its true nature is still up for debate. So in terms of a target for spacecraft, Oumuamua would be an interesting place to start. Do all astronomers want to visit Oumuamua? No. Although they probably wouldn't mind if someone else did it. Initiatives do exist for proposed missions to neighboring stars. So why go to Oumuamua? Proponents of this mission point out that objects such as Oumuamua and Borisov are much closer to us than stars, so they can offer us a chance to observe interstellar material close up, if only we catch up to them.
I just think it's so interesting that they're funneling so much attention and potentially money into going and looking at this, that there's got to be something to it. And I do keep thinking that Oumuamua itself is some sort of thing that our previous, if we want to call them the Atlanteans or whatever, or even before them, it was a technology of theirs that they might have put out there as like a drone. Yeah, like the Black Knight satellite. There had to have been space technology that was used for maybe defensive or something. Not sure. Some sort of it serves some sort of purpose, or it could just be like one of those container ships that works on remote control like that, and it's still out there carrying like a bunch of stuff from Wish.com the last time around, from Atlantis, and they're carrying a bunch of like cheap Atlantean shit around on it. But I do think it's interesting. There's got to be some intelligence that's been gathered on Oumuamua for them to have such an interest in it. Because if it were just a comet or just something like that, I don't think that they would be putting so much effort, attention, and money into building or in developing a spacecraft to go out there and take a look at an interstellar comet or an interstellar just celestial body like that. There's plenty of shit floating around out there that's come from interstellar space or from deep space And so this has got, there's got to be more intel on this that, people at SPAWAR and, the intelligence community are aware of. Perhaps maybe it's got, it can't, because it came in and took an angle, right? It 90-degree turn. So it's like, yeah, it was being steered. And I know that they make it look like a giant space turd, just probably for that whole idea. So that to as a misdirect. So when people look at it, it's like, oh, that's nothing to look at. It might not even be shaped like that. But I mean, I guess it could be. I think it's been described as being tubular in nature, like a.
Been out there. If it's been out there that long, traveling at whatever speeds, then it would make sense for it to be that shape.
Good point. Over time, it elongating like that, and also just the idea. Like I know that back in the kind of Roswell era where they talked about cigar shaped craft, and I just wonder, was this something actually? Was a Muamua physical even? Was a Muamua something again that wasn't quite solid? So I just wonder how much stuff out there in space too isn't necessarily solid, that people are looking at, and could be something slipping between dimensional realities. But yeah, I'll hand this one over to you, Thomas.
Well, the satellite scanning said it was as thin as a sheet of paper, which is truly bizarre. Now that suggests to me that could be from like a fifth dimensional object, and we're seeing it from a three-dimensional view. So we're only seeing it as a glimpse of what it fully is. So we may not be seeing the whole thing. But there's definitely a spiritual dimension to that whole thing. And I'll tell you why. And I'll claim credit for my great powers as a magician from this, that when it happened, I did on YouTube basically a mass of Enuma, and I put music and everything on it as I described the object. Within 2 days, Ireland had its biggest ever UFO flap in decades, with British Airline and Virgin Airline pilots reporting planes, lights in the sky over this part of Ireland. So obviously I tapped into something and kicked it off then. And so there's a gigantic spiritual dimension to Uma. We may be seeing only as a sheet of paper because we're only seeing something that's of more dimensions than what we can perceive. Like if you lived in a two-dimensional world and a ball was put in it, all you would see is a flat circular disc. The same would apply with a five-dimensional object in a 3D space.
Well, do you remember in Contact when they're trying to put together the glyphs that they got, and then it wasn't making any sense until they folded it, and it was, the map was round.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And so I mean, I cannot now help think of Uma and what's happened to the world since 2020. I don't think the two concepts of the Rona lockdown and that appearing, I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. I think they're more likely to be mutually inclusive. It just seemed that the world got very strange after this thing started to appear, and has only descended into more strangeness. Now, I don't know. Is this how gods appear? I don't know. How we would perceive a god, a four-dimensional, five-dimensional object in 3D space. But whatever. Well, I do think, it's funny I mentioned that. There's a painting by Salvador Dali called Corpus Hypercubus, and it's Jesus nailed to a hypercube in a sort of a quantum field. It's one of his most famous paintings, and he was definitely he was definitely a very visionary artist. He was very interested in quantum mechanics and stuff like that. So,
and isn't there something, I might be off here, but isn't there something having to do with a cube and Saturn? Saturn's got.
Well, okay. No, this is a bit kind of truthery. There's a hexagon. Okay. There's a hexagon on the top of Saturn. Very strange. Okay. Now a hexagon is a cube also twisted in space, so at an angle. So that's what they were. Those hexagon things came from this. I don't know. It's a weird truther thing to do with. I don't know.
Were they trying to say that like elites were teleporting there or some shit?
Yeah. No, they're saying things like, when Jewish people go to the Wailing Wall, they wear a tefillin on their head. It's a box,
right?
And then they were trying
to
link that to the thing in Mecca, the box there at the Hajj. But
Okay, yeah.
yeah,
Now I
it was,
remember.
it was just a truther thing. There was no real substance to it. It was
Okay.
kind of like something that, like, you know, a stoner kind of making all these connections. But it was one of these things when I was looking objectively, there was nothing to it. It was just.
But there is something on top of Saturn, though, right?
Oh, there is. There's a hexagon.
Okay.
It's very bizarre. It's very, very
Yeah.
bizarre.
What is your speculation on that? If you just had to take a wild guess.
I haven't a clue. Saturn is a strange planet anyway, and it has this weird field that connects it to Earth. I don't know if you know about that. It's a weird kind of electronic spectrum that connects it to Earth. I don't know. Saturn is almost like, you know, there's a reason why our ancestors considered the planets to be gods. You know, they're alive at some level. You know, the hexagon to root of Saturn is just the strangest thing. I wouldn't even know where to start with that one.
That too, and I don't know if this is conspiracy theory or truth or world, but they talk about the ring makers, that there's something generating those rings around, like projecting them almost, that's sweeping around Saturn, that there's almost like some sort of not ships, but something trailing out the rings that goes around Saturn. Have you heard of that, Thomas? The ring makers?
No, I haven't heard that one. I mean, other planets have rings as well. It's not the only one. I think Neptune has rings too. But Saturn
rings around Uranus.
Ring around Uranus. Yeah. But Saturn is the most pronounced one. Yeah, I mean, back to the Numa thing, it's hard to pronounce that. That thing, when that story first broke, I knew we'd crossed into the Rubicon. But we'd gone through the looking glass, and we're in a new place. And the world has only become stranger and stranger since that thing showed up and made a right angle inside inside the solar system. And that's about as much as I can say about it.
Yeah, and like you're saying, Thomas, I loved your Simon If analogy there, the Crowleyan thing about when a higher dimensional object imposes itself upon a lower dimensional space, you only see that two-dimensional plane of it. Just that thing that the way Crowley put that in Simon If's character in Moonchild was just beautiful. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, that thing though about Oumuamua, whatever it is, Moa showing up in 2020 and then changing everything. 2017, thanks. 2017. Everything did kind of change then, and it's like if something were to come in and project a frequency or some kind of it could have been something that came in here and dropped something off in this locale. If it did come from interstellar space, if it did come from outside of this locale of shit that we're dragging around behind our sun, that did it bring something in with it, kind of like a spore, and kind of blow it, and it just made its way, whether it's a frequency or something physical or something higher dimensional, got blasted into the system, dropped off here, and manifested itself as what we're going through right now. Like if we talk about there just being something so incredibly other about the whole Rona pandemic, like did that get dropped off as a package, so to speak? You know, was this thing some kind of messenger? Like I used the whole freighter analogy earlier. Like what was it, something that delivered a payload, so to speak, whether that was a physical, energetic, temporal, you know, something, whether it's matter, energy, space, or time, temporal package that it dropped off here. I kind of wonder about that.
Well, if you think in terms of, we only are aware of it because we can see that far into space, that we can actually, we have telescopes and stuff that we can do these kinds of things. But in a previous time, that wouldn't have been known about. Would it have appeared as a strange light in the sky or as a god or something? You know, it's almost like it almost beckoned us to look at it.
Yeah, and I just had another, while Jason was talking, kind of throw it back to Saturn. It kind of popped into my mind. I wonder if Saturn might be a machine of some sort, and I wouldn't be surprised, or it's at least we're speculating on, that maybe inside Saturn is a black hole, but because Saturn is both things lead and gold, it can exist there without destroying itself. And so maybe, I don't know, like I'm really just shooting off the hip because I just thought of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's we don't know what it is. I mean, this is the whole thing. I remember being amazed when I was a kid and they told us these were gas giants, that these were mostly gas. I found it very hard to believe that they're just balls of gas. that have mass. Okay, the huge amount of mass, but you look at, did you see the recent picture of Jupiter I posted up from, from this, and then when you see those planets close up, they're terrifying, absolutely terrifying. They're not pretty at all. They're only pretty. The better our resolution gets, the more terrifying the universe becomes. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. Those moons like Iapetus and Io and
yeah. And even some of those deep space things that the Hubble takes. And yet they're obsessed with deeper and deeper looks into space. They're now planning even more powerful telescopes than Hubble, much more powerful. I mean, it's like we're playing a dangerous game here, looking into. We may be creating the universe. Maybe we need to be more careful of the kind of universe we're creating. The deeper we peer into it.
Yeah. That's why I think there needs to be Jack Parsons archetypes within the space program, because as a magician, as someone who is actually capable of thinking of things at that level, feeling things at that level. Like if you've got a bunch of these IFSL types that have got their PhDs and stuff at the helm of the space program, right? They're the ones doing the scrying, and what's in there. It's just like when Parsons and Hubbard did the Babylon working. Hubbard had his download, which he was brought back as a map of the human psyche with his flavor. Like he was an intelligence officer. He was born in 1911 as an American. So it was all colored from his point of view. Just like if it had come through Parsons, it would have been colored from Parsons' point of view, a little more right-brained, science fiction story, perhaps. So it's like when people do this scrying and they bring something back from elsewhere, it's very much colored by their experience. So these people, the IFSL people, if they're out there scrying, they're going to be scrying some, what they come back is going to come back in a very much, I don't know if you heard that, our smoke alarm has gone off twice here since we've been sitting here. It's never beeped like that before. But anyway, these IFSL types, IFLS types, if they were doing the scrying, they would be bringing back a download that's heavily colored from their point of view. So it's like, I want to say, there needs to be more mystics, magicians, artists, creatives, bohemian types within, this next up and coming space program. But but still, this whole thing with Oumuamua and all this, I think it's cool that we're putting attention out into space again, and there are private sector space contracts out there, and it's not all just NASA, it's not all just European Space Agency or the CCP, that there are independent contracts going on with space. It just sucks that it's like the likes of Elon Musk and all them are kind of the ones, paying the piper to do their thing again. But I think as we go forward closer to the, the next renaissance, as Thomas, you're talking about, kind of 2033 and beyond, it's like there will be the young folks today that were born kind of in the 20 teens. As they grow up, they're going to be more artists and mystics that make their way into our paradigm. Because it's like I noticed a lot of those kids, like a lot of them are glued to technology, but a lot of them hate being recorded by cameras and cell phones and stuff like that. And I keep thinking this thing that, those kids are going to be the ones that rebel against the overuse and overdependence of technology, because they were born with iPads and stuff like that in front of them. And I think they're going to be the ones that go out and use canvases again and get really interested in playing sports and musical instruments again. And so again, I do have a lot of hope for this youngest generation, because I think they will be the ones that by the time they come of age in the 2030s and beyond, they're going to be bringing something incredible into the egregore, into the zeitgeist, so to speak, of the next paradigm. And we will have thinkers that are going into the space program that are more right-brained, that bring a little more magic, mythology, and aesthetics into the field of space exploration.
Yeah, mic drop. Yeah, that was great discourse. Thank you. That was good. Thomas, you okay?
Yeah.
Thinking that's Saturn, right? That's the heaviness of Saturn. And
well, it's kind of tying when we do the psychic weather. I'm kind of longing for the light of Lucifer right now. I feel we badly need that right now, and it's not there.
Yeah, I know for me, I definitely very much feel the presence of Saturn. I think I told you guys on a previous show about a waking vision that I had once when I was a younger kid. And it was a vision of Saturn, like it is, you know, bigger than the moon. And it mesmerized me. And I just stood and stared at it for I don't know how long. And I think that was like its first appearance in my life. And ever since that, it's just nonstop testing grounds. It never stops. It never lets up. There's moments of like, you know, brief respite or whatever. But yeah, that really needing to invoke the light of Lucifer into all this stuff, because it's, you know, the heaviness there's a purpose for it. You know, it's changing us, it's transmuting all of us. But yeah, we need to find that balance there and call that in. So everybody need to do that for themselves. And we can do it all together too, but yeah.
Yeah. This is good shit today. Is it about time for a psychic weather report? Do you want to roll that now, Thomas?
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty predictable what it is, but yeah, let's. I think this was the 1 week I don't need to do it. Everyone already knows what it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Is it bad? Is it great? Are you happy? Are you irate? The week in psychic weather.
Well, this is one of the psychic weather reports I don't really want to do, because it's kind of like, you know, you don't want to do shit when you don't have to, but this is the nature of the job that I've been given. But like, if I was to describe the psychic weather at the moment, it's like a Carl cyclone, a demonic typhoon. It's pure wickedness at the moment. And how this came about, I don't know. I really don't know. But it just suddenly arrived. And right now, I'm not feeling the best. I haven't felt this horrible since probably in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, when I knew something wicked had unfolded that I couldn't fully put my fingers on. And that's how I'm feeling right now, that a great wickedness is transpiring at the moment behind the scenes, or about to happen. And I just don't feel right about holding this back, because I think we need to protect ourselves. Basically, any demonic individuals in your life will Renfield and fly off the handle right now. You've got to be very careful about your space. You've got to hold your space tight to yourself, and you've got to be very private and very restrained, and very don't get dragged into arguments, don't get dragged into bullshit. Just accept things as they are, make plans to avoid them in privacy, and just avoid them. The feeding is ferocious right now. You'll see it. I know I get a hard time for having a go at stoners, but stoners are a fantastic conduit for demons. And when they start acting up with extreme passive aggressiveness, you're almost seeing like what happens when suppose you're in a tower looking over a forest, and a huge army is coming towards you, walking in silence. How do you know? You know by the birds in this tree start suddenly flying up, and people start saying, "Holy shit! There's something on the march. It's coming this way." Now, I'm a great believer in auguries and stuff like that, and I've been watching the birds lately, and the birds are not right. They're not singing. They're not around. I saw some very peculiar behavior by a murder of crows the other day that didn't make any sense. It was almost like they were trying to commit suicide. They were landing on the road in mass and not getting out of the way until the trucks beeped their horn. It was very strange. These things are all signs and portents of a great wickedness passing over the world right now. And none of us will escape this. We will all be hit by it in one way or another, to different degrees. Hopefully we'll all get off. Most of us get off light watching this. But this cyclone, this Carl cyclone, have no dealing with anyone who tries to drag you into shit. Even if you know them, even if you've been friends with them for years, don't let anyone drag you into an argument, into a fight. Just ignore them. If you don't want to fall out with them, just make an excuse and walk away. If you don't know them and you don't owe them anything, just block them. Just get rid of them. And this will pass in time. These things, this is the psychic weather. It's not a psychic permanence. It's just how it's going to be for it now. I don't know when it's going to end, because this motherfucker came out of nowhere. Absolutely out of nowhere when I was over in England last week, and I could feel it. And it was just washing over the world. So that's the week in psychic weather. It is a demonic typhoon. It's got a huge amount of wickedness of it. There's no Luciferian light to cast brightness upon it to show us what it is at the moment yet, so we can actually identify it. But the best way to deal with it at the moment is just like if you're walking through the woods and you heard a strange noise behind you, turn your back and run from it in the other direction. That's what I would say, without making a fuss so it can't follow your trail, And that's basically it. I mean, that's the way an army of demons is on the march. That's the only way I could put it. So, whatever way you can protect yourself, hold out until it ends. And, Ave Lucifer and long live the horn gods. That's all I can say. And that's been the psychic weather at me, Thomas Sheridan.
Is it bad? Is it great? Are you happy? Are you irate? The week in psychic weather.
Amazing. Incredible. I think that was maybe the heaviest hitting psychic weather you've done, and they're all great and they're all amazing. But there's something in there with that, and because right now is so critical, and as you were talking about the light of Lucifer, I was thinking about in Lord of the Rings, is it the light of Arendi, or however you say that, when all of the lights go out, like we have to find that within ourselves and help out the homies too. Like, that whole thing that we talk about with finding the others, like we found a lot of them, and, sometimes there's struggles and things. And so it's just, motherfuckers taking care of each other is awesome. I love that shit. And
just to point out, this is not doom.
I know.
I'm coming from, this is tough love. I'm coming from a place of, and that,
you're being Saturn right now. You're being the father, that hard, heavy hitting fatherly, disciplinarian.
Yeah, no, well, it's just, you got to watch your own arse at the moment. It's just, and it will pass, but I just don't know when. But it does feel like a toxic soup of poisonous malevolence, and anything that's like if you have a real evil asshole in your life, they'll make themselves known.
That's right. And I was going to say something in response to that, and I got thrown off because I was thinking of something, but I had a really good point to say to that, and I totally just dropped it. Talking about Saturn, and we were talking, right now I think we're being given a tremendous opportunity to face things. So we're given challenges right now, which are actually opportunities to give us little bits of lessons from perhaps Saturn is downloading some stuff into each one of us right now to face, because we're going to be needing to face something incredibly challenging here in the future. And again, I'm not being a doomer or something, but I think that, we're going through some boot camp right now. We're going through basic training inside our hearts, inside our minds right now, and needing to face things within ourselves to prepare us for what's coming. Just like Timothy's been saying for a while now, February, there's just been all this February stuff that starting back in October. Yeah. It was so many people in the alternative scene have just been talking about February. And it's like spring showed up early here, at least on this coast. And it's like a coast of the US. Psychopath season started early. They're all,
the one quick thing I was going to say about that is someone mentioned the full moon. And so the next full moon actually lands on the 1st of March, which is the Ides of March.
Yeah, so that may be a good thing. Don't think
but it's just head on the swivel. It's head on the swivel, and
I'll just tell you all.
Another thing, just to point out, sorry, Jason, you'll probably have lots of problems with electronic appliances. You'll have weird things happen, like the engine light coming on in your car and there's nothing wrong with the engine, or the brake light coming on, the brakes are off. Like dishwashers breaking down, that kind of thing. Appliances being damaged. This always seems to happen during these periods. That because the end. That's because the energetic nature of ourselves is so disruptive that anything we come into contact with that's energetically dependent, such as electronics, such as like even things like bicycles, like you might the gears on your bicycle might actually get all messed up. You'd be amazed by like what can happen, But that's part of this thing as well. This disruption, it's a mess on lots of levels, both physical and emotional and psychological and spiritual. But it's like that. It's part. We've been through these things in our lives before. It's just that this one right now came out of nowhere, and that's probably why it feels particularly insidious.
Yeah, it really is out of nowhere. And it's just like, I had a dream that I'll share with you a little bit, a portion of it with everyone real fast. The other night, I was looking up at the sky, and there was this blood red sunset, and the moon was gigantic, but the moon didn't have its normal face on it. It had, like what a lotus pod looks like, those little tiny holes that look real. If you have that thing, it's called trypophobia. It's not a fear of holes necessarily, but it makes you uncomfortable, the little tiny hole things. And I totally got that. It totally makes me uncomfortable. So I was looking up at this moon, and it looked like a lotus pod. And my dad was right there in my dream. And I looked at him and I said that there will be bloodshed underneath between when this moon, something about before this moon has waned fully. So I said it in like a very Legolas kind of way. It was like very, very Tolkien-y and very, very much more eloquent than I normally am. But I said this thing to my dad in my dream, that there was going to be bloodshed before the next new moon. So between full moon, which is Wednesday, I want to say the 17th, and the 1st of March, I want to say. But it was just this very strange dream synchronicity and other weird shit in that dream too. And someone saying it's a blood moon. But yeah, the sunset in it was like a blood sunset. And it was just the strangest thing. So again, that could be just chock full of symbolism, or it could be actual. But just that thing, like Thomas, you're saying, there's just so many synchronicities, so many dark synchronicities right now, like what you were talking about with the birds kind of almost committing suicide and stuff. And it's just, you look around everywhere and the animals are acting strange. Dogs are, cats are. There's a lot more roadkill right now. And it's not just because it's spring. And but yeah, in particular, the bird thing, I think that's going to segue kind of nicely into what we have next.
Dead birds fall down from the sky and rain down on cars. It's like there were hundreds of birds in the sky, and all of a sudden they just died and fell to the ground. A woman driving home was greeted with an eerie sight as she came across dead birds lying on a road in Pembrokeshire. Michaela Pritchard said it looked like a massacre as she traveled on the road between Waterson and Hazel Beach on Thursday evening. There was seemingly little explanation for what caused around 200 birds to die so suddenly, with some pointing to the nearby Dragon LNG plant as a possible cause. One man added he heard a loud bang before 7 or 8 birds rained down on his car in nearby Waterson. People suggested other theories for why the birds have died, including electrocution or being chased by a bird of prey at dusk before hitting the road surface. Michaela said she didn't hang around as much, as it was such an eerie sight, and instead phoned Pembrokeshire Council to report what she'd seen. She said they were already dead when she came across them at around 8 p.m. Oh, shoot. Okay. Ian McCaffrey works in Waterson and said some birds fell out of the sky onto his car just after he heard a large electrical type bang. He said, when I left for work Thursday night, I heard a bang and then a load of birds landed on my car. He reckoned at least 6 landed on the ground and added, every now and again, you will hear a bang that is coming from what I think is a crow scare that farmers use. However, this bang was more like an electrical bang, not quite as loud as lightning, but similar. It's like there were hundreds of birds in the sky and all of a sudden they just died and fell to the ground. It was quite surreal last night, to be honest with you, not something I have ever experienced before. Claire Eaton, who lives close to the road, went out at 11 p.m. and said it was traumatic to see. She thought the birds had died on impact and even managed to scoop one of the stunned birds up and take it home still alive. She is planning to release it later today. About an hour before, I was at Nayland Marina walking my dog and I saw a big flash and I didn't think anything of it, she said. Maybe something spooked them and they flew into the pylons. Pembrokeshire Council said it was aware of the incident. A spokesman added, we received a call at around 9 p.m. on February 10th regarding a number of dead starlings on the Hazel Beach Road in Waterson. Officers attended the site and there were around 200 starlings found dead on the road. The authority undertook a cleanup and removed the dead birds from the site. There is no, excuse me, there is no clear indication as to the cause of these deaths. We have reported the incident to the Animal and Plant Health Agency. Mic drop.
Yeah, this happened in Wales, Mexico, and Kentucky. These birds just falling out of the sky all within a few days of each other. And the very strange thing about this too is that there's videos out there that you can look up on YouTube, and some of it is just like suddenly just like this massive birds as a clump just goes thump, just falls out of the sky, like not like they're dying, it's just like going along and then dead. Yeah, just dropping. Not like they hit something, but literally as if like something went in there and deactivated their nervous system and they all just instantly died. Go ahead, Thomas. Yeah.
They're all starlings. Starlings are birds that fly at night following lights, and they're also known for their murmurations. They have a strong sense of empathy among themselves, that they can have these incredible displays while flying in the sky. They're also very connected to human beings in folklore, and when starlings die in large numbers, it means that humans are going to die in large numbers. So it's a portent of something's going to happen. It's going to kill large numbers of humans. That's the mythological view, that because the bird is connected to the human soul. Now, whether this is because of like, we're not going to talk about it for, yourself, the needlecraft and things like that. I don't know if it is or not, but I think if you were to look at it from the point of view of the auguries, they were being told that, large numbers of humans are going to die. From a more prosaic thing, it makes no sense that it happens in three countries at the same time. One is a freak show by itself. Now, when birds usually fall out of the sky like that in large numbers, it's usually because of an explosion or something. And there's nothing that I saw one of those videos and it looked like someone got a bucket of birds and poured them out of the sky. Now, what that looked like to me initially was whatever causes them to fly, like the atmosphere below them, had vanished. There was nothing. There was no atmosphere below them. There was nothing to cause lift, and they literally just fell out of the sky onto the ground. And it seemed like the fall is what killed them, actual falling from a height. So there's just something really bizarre going on. Again, it's part of the psychic weather. This stuff is not unrelated to human conditions and human lives. And it happened in Wales and where else?
Wales, Kentucky, and Mexico. I'm not sure what part of Mexico.
Yeah, and I'm probably sure it happened in some other places too. We've only just caught these on camera or up and seen them. Yeah, I mean, that's not a good sign. That's not a good sign on any level. There's nothing positive about that. It's just something to be, again, wary about.
And with that, Thomas, you still there? Oh, sorry, here's frozen for a second. This thing about them all falling at the same time in these places. Somebody in the comments put something about that there's gigantic cave systems within those places, within Kentucky and within Wales. Yeah. And something about the gin. No? Okay. No.
I know Pembrokeshire. It's just across from Ireland. There's nothing like that there. There's caves everywhere. How would caves affect birds falling from the sky? How do you
he was saying gin.
I got you. Yeah, well, that's you could be right about that. No, I just think this is just like they fall. These things happen to speak to humans. This is natural forces talking to us. In a time before, in a time of oracles, people would wait for things like this to know that something was about to happen, and they probably all died of a heart attack at a specific moment, so we could see it. It's like when whales beached themselves. That's never been properly studied. People go, why did the whales beach themselves, And yet no one ever seems to want to do any kind of correlations between whales beaching themselves and things that may happen in the human world around the same time. Because I think there's a similar kind of thing going on there as well. It's a great mystery. It's the whale beaching themselves and the birds falling from the sky are very specific things that happen the way they do. And they're, again, I don't have the answers. I just know that if I was to go back 2,500 years to ancient Rome, and I was to walk up to a priest at a temple of Jupiter, he would say there's going to lots of humans going to die, lots of people going to die, and that's what that means.
Right. Well, I think this again is a good segue into our next story here. This is the one.
All right. Yuri Geller claims there's a mass alien invasion coming as he issues warning to NASA. Famed spoonbender Yuri Geller claims a mass alien invasion is on its way to Earth. He says he stumbled across chatter between superior beings from 4,000 light years away. Yuri Geller has warned NASA to prepare for a mass alien invasion of Earth soon. The legendary spoonbender reckons scientists mapping radio waves who discovered a giant energy source 4,000 light years away may have stumbled upon the chit-chat of some superior beings from outer space. So Yuri Geller, 75, reckons the aliens are heading our way. He announced on Instagram, a team mapping radio waves in the universe has discovered something unusual that releases a giant burst of energy 3 times an hour, and it's unlike anything astronomers have ever seen before. No doubt in my mind, this is coming to alien, and this is connected to alien intelligence way, way superior than ours. Start deciphering their messages. They are preparing us for a mass landing soon. Whatever. Scientists said they have never seen anything like the spooky new phenomenon before. They believe it could be a neutron star or white dwarf, collapsed cores of stars with an ultra powerful magnetic field known as a magnetar. So that's that.
Well, I know someone who knows Yuri Geller, and he's a friend, kind of a mutual friend, and his powers are real. I mean, that's not bullshit about him having those powers. My friend is disabled, and Yuri Geller can't help him with his wheelchair, putting it into the car, bringing him to the car because the wheelchair falls apart. It's an electronic one, you know, like with a motor in it, and the thing just literally falls apart if he touches it. So he can't help him get into the car with the wheelchair. And ironically, this friend of mine is a total and complete atheist, but except one thing, he's totally obsessed with aliens. He really does believe in the alien invasion thing, although he believes in nothing else. It's just so strange. And he tells me that like Yuri Geller is like the real deal. He's like, and I believe him, because if this is the kind of guy that he would call a spade. And he said that he's the real deal. He really does have these powers and insights, and yet he does come across as goofy, but that's part of his stagecraft almost, you know. But I can't believe he's 75. I remember watching him as a kid on TV and Ireland bending his spoons and stuff like that. I always found that interesting. But he was able to fix what, I mean, he did his demonstration on Irish TV when I was a kid, where he said anyone has a broken watch or clock that's not ticking, put it in front of the TV and I can make it tick. And there were suddenly thousands and thousands of phone calls from all over Ireland to the TV station that I can't believe it. The watch or the clock started ticking again. It started working. And he spoke about blockages of energy. And these are things that were caused by blockages of energy in the home, would make your watch stop or your clock stop. So he's the real deal. So, I mean, people laugh at him because of his, like, you know, he's kind of involvement with soccer and things like that. And, you know, claim, you know, he had a team, and I think it was Fulham, and he was hired as like their psychic advisor or something in England. And he gets a lot of goofy raps, but I read one of his books, and he's actually quite an intelligent and interesting man. Now, regarding this alien invasion, I mean, yeah, I'm not the only one to speculate at this, but the needlecraft, is that the spaceship, you know? I mean, about 10 years ago, I drew a doodle, and I found it recently, and it was a church, and the spire was a needle, an intravenous needle, and it was pointing up at the sky. And around that time, I was having lots of dreams. I was looking at my dream journal about aliens and UFOs landing in the sky. So are the two things related? I don't know, but I'm living at the point now where I'm ready to believe anything, and nothing seems outrageously stupid to me anymore in terms of stuff like that. The synchronicities are off the scale, you know. So who knows? Maybe he's right, but maybe he's missing the target. Maybe the actual invasion has already happened with the needlecraft.
Yep, they're here. Yeah, They're not showing up in spacecraft. Maybe they're showing up in needlecraft.
Yeah.
And I made a video about this last summer about I called them interdimensional body pirates.
Yeah.
And just the way that and you could go in there. One could create a thing that makes it possible to alter stuff within the body to make it so that the tether between the human entity and the body have a weaker link. So making walk-ins a lot easier. And we've been talking about walk-ins so much recently. So that idea of like preparing them coming through interdimensionally, and then just like with any invasion, there'll be spies that come in first. There'll be intel operatives undercover, and then after intel's been gathered, they'll send the scouts in, right? So it's like I think we've been seeing operatives and scouts coming through, and it's just a matter of time until there's like a full-on invasion. And then the invasion would be when they actually come in and start taking over human bodies in mass. And I think we're just begin to see that, like, what the fuck is wrong with people right now. And we'd see that because I mean, I don't know. I'm sure all of you have had people around you that have just totally turned into a completely different person. And it's like they have the memories of the person, of the host of that body, but that the person that was no longer in charge of that body, there's something else and they're driving it, So
well, I watched a John Waters interview the other day, and he was on this. It was a Catholic video, a Catholic YouTube channel. The young guy was hosting it. Very interesting, intelligent, likable, nice American young guy. And this young guy was very forthright in saying, I actually believe this is a spiritual invasion. We're actually dealing with a spiritual attack, that there's something supernatural about the whole thing. And John said, I agree, but unfortunately didn't continue on with it. Now, I just saw a video tonight. If people watch the latest video from Richard Hall, richplanet.net, it's a 3-hour-long video about what's in the needlecraft. But I also saw another video. It was a clip of a video, a discussion between a Catholic priest and an Orthodox Jewish rabbi. And the Orthodox Jewish rabbi said, people have been injected are no longer human beings. I don't know what they are, but they're no longer human beings. Now, a Jewish rabbi would know about golems and shit like that. And, I'm just throwing it out there. We're living in times that are hard to believe. I can't believe we're having these conversations, but here we are.
Yeah. Our everything that we've done, everything we've experienced has been a preparation for this point. Yeah. And that's what I was saying. Like right now we're going through kind of like a psychic boot camp, having to go through some really quick trials here where like whatever holes we have in our armor, whatever chinks in our armor, it's like we're going in there and doing whatever we can to repair them. So when it comes time for the difficult things ahead of us, we'll be prepared for them. I really do think that that's what's going on. I've been talking to a number of people who've just been saying the same thing, that it feels like there's something else here. It's like everybody's got their own version of what they say that it is, but it's like no matter what, people have the same feeling. And I'm sure all of you in the comments are feeling the same thing. And your solar plexus, there's dozens of people I've talked to that talked about this feeling. It's in the solar plexus. I've been feeling it like crazy lately. I'm sure you all have been too.
A fantastic novel from the 1950s written by a British science fiction author called John Wyndham called The Midwich Cuckoos. And it was also made into a fantastic 1960 movie called The Village of the Damned. And basically the story revolves around a village in England where everyone falls asleep one afternoon. And when they wake up, all the women are pregnant with these children who are all like invaders from another world. And I suggest people watch that film if you can find it tonight, Village of the Damned. And it's really about what's happening now on a microcosm, and how they deal with this thing in the village. Maybe how we'll probably have to deal with what we're facing. And I can't believe at this stage in my life that I'm watching videos by people I've known who were journalists in Ireland that I grew up with talking about there's a supernatural element to this thing that's attacking us. It's like an invasion from another planet is just as good as an analogy as others. You hear people like Neil Oliver from the BBC saying similar. in a different kind of way, what's happened to the world on top of all this stuff. I mean, maybe the Weak and Strange TV show was brought into our reality for this reason, so we could report like we are the real news, reporting what's really going on at a consciousness level to the world. Like we're like the only actual journalists out there that are actually covering the thing properly. You know, I mean, it's, you know, because maybe we're making this program out of frustration on some levels. You know I am to a certain degree when I do like the psychic weather this week and stuff like that. I'm just trying to, but yeah. I mean, I'm glad I didn't take the needlecraft. I'm so glad, and I'm willing to die not to do it ever. And
right. It would fuck with our reincarnation cycle, right? Like I would rather
maybe. I don't want to say that's for certain, but the worst, the most out there conspiracy theories about this needlecraft are actually the most rational things about it.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and it's just so much of that, like a year ago, would not have been mainstream information, and now it's just like the veil has been pulled back, and you know, you can go to a coffee shop and the person in line in front of you can have a conversation with them about this, and it's just the narrative is falling apart, and this stuff is being exposed because there's just so much of it out there that's obvious. Cliff High calls it the over woo, where it's literally like the woo, the strangeness has taken over everything to the point of where like it can't be denied that it's literally right in front of everyone. Like, you know, only the IFLS types like can't see this. And so it's like it's taken over. It's gone past whatever the 51%, you know, of people seeing this. But going back to like this thing with what Yuri was talking about, with them coming through right now, and yeah, it might be colored just like with everything. Like everybody's story of something is going to be heavily influenced by their background, and his background might be like that, but whatever he's getting is something legitimate. And it's just like, you know, I'm sure you've been getting the messages too, Thomas. I'm sure everybody here is like talking to each other in DMs and stuff about there's just something else here right now. It's like they already have arrived, but yeah, the disclosure is not what we think it is. And but again, so it's like there's all this doom of it, but again, what can we do? I think now is like a really incredible time for us to all be getting in touch, being artists, doing the things that you've always wanted to get done. We've got a tremendous like support group of people here in the tribe that are all very similarly like-minded and can get together to collaborate on creative things. Because it's like the best thing we can do right now is just, you know, hold on to our humanity, right? Create, you know, don't you know, I'm telling this to myself just as much as everyone else, you know, don't get too sucked into all this where that's all we think about. You know, I think it's incredible for us to be working on our films. You know, we've got some great things here in the works.
Yeah, that's the important thing. You're not faithful to this. Remember that. You know, the devil always knocks on the door. It's up to you to answer it or not. Mm-hmm. And the fact that we've actually got this far alone is a spectacular success for us. You know, that we've actually got this thing. But it's clear now they failed with the needle, with the scamdemic, the ping pong whole thing. It's failed now, and they're going to try something else. Now, I don't mean, you know, there's all don't you know, people are saying, oh, you know, there's all kind of, there's nothing happening in Ukraine. The Ukraine thing is completely made up by Biden administration to actually make that lunatic look like a statesman. There's nothing going on there. It's just total wag the dog stuff. So don't be thinking about that. The thing you have to think about is what's inside you and how you're going to deal with this. Okay. And how you're going to deal with this is you're going to not be negative about it. You know, a soldier who's fighting a battle doesn't think every 2 minutes, oh my God, I'm going to die in a couple of minutes. They act as if that's not even an issue anymore. They just have a job to do. And that's how we are. We just have a job to do. And that job to do is to create, hold the tribe together. And this entity is backed into a corner. I think look, they've already lost in my mind. But the thing is, it's not going to be pretty. We will see things that we never thought we'd ever see in our lives being born. And those things like those birds falling from the sky and stuff, is the precursor of what we'll see with people and other things like that. We live in an age where I don't believe that human beings are running this earth at the moment. I don't know what they are. I'm not going to say they're any kind of specific breed or anything like that. But all I've been doing is writing articles about it on my Substack thing in recent days. And they're getting more and more outrageous, but they're also getting more and more comforting, because the more outrageous they get, the more I can feel, okay, that's what I'm dealing with. It's almost like I'm letting my ambitions go and finally saying, this is what we're fucking dealing with. A demonic war against the human race that probably doesn't come from this planet. If you just say to me, are we being attacked by interdimensional demons? You know what I'd say? Yes.
Yeah, and I wonder, are they coming through Saturn?
They could be coming. I don't know.
I mean, it doesn't matter. It's just a thought.
Look, we're being attacked by interdimensional space demons, and that's the end of it. Where they came from, but the most likely method that they're landing, their landing modules is that fucking needlecraft. I know it.
Yeah, and also there's just this strange thing. There was this comment thread going around in the BR313 group about the internet dying, and I know that I put a very unpopular opinion in there that maybe it needs to die, because I want to say, like, the infrastructure that the internet has created, like, yeah, we got all the fucking knowledge at our fingertips that we could ever want, but no wisdom. But this idea that the internet could also be a nervous system, a network, a communication line, a system of traveling for these entities to go through. And just like with what happens when something becomes a wound becomes atrophied or abscessed or injured beyond repair for the body, blood flow stops to it, and the nervous connections start to fade away and sever, and the whatever it is, the extremity or the organ or whatever it is, begins to shut down and atrophy, right? And that's like what's going on with the internet right now. It's like a finger or something that had been badly damaged and got infected, and now it's starting to become gangrenous, and soon will just fall off, so that gangrenous or that infection doesn't spread to the rest of the body. And it's like, I really do feel like the internet might be that thing right now. If they are coming through, it wouldn't surprise me if they're using internet, whatever you want to call it, this non-physical thing. It probably exists in multiple dimensions. Like we were talking about the Simon If thing earlier. It's like, I would imagine that, the internet could exist in more than one reality. And that's how they could be using as a via to get back and forth between our reality and their reality. And then there's a very physical thing with the needlecraft.
Did you ever see you see, I'm a great believer in science fiction and horror is true. It actually predicts the future in some ways. And you look at, like, H.P. Lovecraft never said how big the old ones were. He never said how big they were. They could be big enough to fit through the eye of a needle, of a syringe, but he never told us what size they were. And that John Carpenter film, Greg mentioned it recently on one of the pubs, I think, Season of the Witch, Halloween 3. How that happened was they used the Halloween mask and the TV in order to create a call of humanity. Now, what do we have today? We have the needlecraft and the internet, TikTok and the internet, the dance macabre. So, I mean, I do believe that people like that do predict the future in lots of ways. And, it's the internet has replaced the TV, and that's the actual trigger thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's done something to the human psyche as well. The way that, like, not needing to go to the library anymore, not needing to go out and do your own research. You can just use voice commands to look up something on the phone, Alexa, and not have, yeah. And then not have to do
I never have one of those things in my house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is a weird place to be kind of ending this off, but it's like all this stuff. I think it is preparing us for something, and like you said, Thomas, we're some of the only people reporting on this right now because we don't have an agenda, and we're not trying to get anyone to do anything in particular. I guess the only thing we're trying to get people to do in particular is be themselves and create. Yeah. So that's the only thing close to an agenda we have is be yourself.
And we also stay away from politics. We're not political.
Right.
When you actually get involved in politics, you start putting yourself in a distracted situation. And so much of alt media is obsessed with politics. I mean, I'm not, you know, I don't care about. I don't care about the political system. I don't care about the legal system. I don't care about the courts and the judges. I don't care about all that shit. When people start bringing that stuff, someone sent me a link here tonight of some guy who's taking a legal action over, and I don't care. Stop sending me that. I don't care. That's not where I am now. That world is dead. It's dead. It's gone. We're in a very different place, and we don't have the tools to survive the new world. But by God, on 313 and this channel and the tribe, we're developing the fucking tools to survive. Because I tell you something, it's the only we have the skill sets we're developing are through this fucking communications we're having through these mediums between us. And that's the only place it's happening. And going back to watching the fucking news and reading newspapers and the political system or the court system, that's not going to fucking do it. We need a whole new skill set of how to relate as human beings in this world. Because they haven't happened yet, but we're developing them and learning them as we go along. And that's the end of it. And that's like, pull your fucking stop fucking depending on, sorry for the language, but stop fucking depending on, you know, freemen of the fucking land and other fuckers who go down to the courthouses with summons and stuff like that. Or, you know, I'm going to write a letter to the paper. I'm going to fucking vote for this guy. That's all gone. That's all fucking dead, right? Pull your fucking trousers up. Pull your fucking trousers up and accept the reality of the wickedness that's going around the world right now. And the same tools that created that wickedness are the same shit that you're just telling me to use against it. You cannot fight the wickedness with its own weapons. We have to develop skill sets to move beyond it. Now, I'm sorry I've turned this show into a fucking editorial tonight, but that's where we are. You know?
Yeah, no, that was perfectly said. That's the best place for us to end this.
Yeah.
Well, we
need the philosopher kings to return. That's what we need.
Yeah. You know, and this is the week in Strange, but like Thomas, you said, this is the eon of Strange, and we're all in it. You know, we're just happen to be here on YouTube talking about this shit and chopping it up and sharing it.
Yeah. But in a few weeks' time, we'll be in a happy place here. You know, be having a laugh about it. Nothing is permanent. Everything is temporary. It's all in a state of flux. And what part of the sine wave you decide to get stuck on, lock down the bottom and doom, up on the top in positivity doesn't work in either. You've got to ride the entire cycles of the sine wave, good and bad, and that's how you live a good life.
Fucking Ave Lucifer.
Long live the Horn Gods. But yeah, Thomas, I that thing you were saying about not letting it turn into editorial, but you know what? That's what's beautiful about this show is it's a news. It's like the news stories bring up all these things that need to be said. Like we're sitting here and bringing up things that need to be said. The news stories themselves are almost not as important as the other information that comes through these shows. It's like, and I think people would agree that's why people enjoy the show so much. Is we tell Timothy reads some really awesome stories and we speculate on them and talk about them, but it's there's other tangents that we go on. That's the real gold here. And that's not what you get on. Yeah.
Because these Fortean stories, and why I've always loved the Fortean thing, is it acts like a philosophical amplifier. It makes you think about your own life and reality from outside the box. And that's the only way evolution ever happened.
Right. No fixed ideas about things like we've been saying, you know, there can be
orthodoxy is your enemy right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, this may have been our heaviest show yet, but I think it's maybe our most important one yet. So Thomas, thank you so much. As always, it's so great to see your beautiful face and spending time and, you know, doing all this stuff with us. We really appreciate you.
Yeah. I mean, thanks for that. I mean, we'll have a great time on all these shows to come, but you know, sometimes a turd is a turd and there's no way around it.
No. Beautiful. All right, everyone. Thank you for coming in and tuning in live on Facebook. And this will be up on YouTube very soon. And I think Thomas is going to serenade us out.